Olá, bem-vindos à Igreja no Mundo, o programa da Fundação AIS Ajuda à Igreja que Sofre. Eu sou o Paulo Bairro e ao longo desta meia hora vamos ver um documentário sobre a situação dos cristãos no Paquistão. O Paquistão é um país maioritariamente muçulmano, os cristãos são apenas uma minoria, mas apesar de toda a discriminação a que têm estado sujeitos, eles têm desempenhado um papel fundamental, até também na solidariedade. Vamos ver.
If you go to Pakistan, the first reactions from family members will most likely be that of concern. Western media portray this country as rife with violence, political assassinations, bombing attacks from US drones, and the Taliban atrocities. Pakistan, however, although scarred with some of these, is not all of these. Pakistan too is a country of hospitable and warm-hearted people with a ready smile and desire to help those in need. The issue which plagues Pakistani society is that which is closest to the heart, religion, specifically the state religion of Islam and the place of religious minorities within Islam. Pakistan, or more precisely, the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, lies in South Asia and is bordered by Iran, Afghanistan, China, and India. The country achieved independence in 1947 following the end of British colonial rule in India. The founding father, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, envisioned a country, although based on Islam, which was to be simultaneously pluralistic, accepting believers of other faiths, Hindus, Sikhs, and Christians. Today, 97% of this society of over 180 million people is Muslim. The majority are Sunni. The remaining 2% are Christians, though by no means new to the religious landscape, with the arrival of St. Thomas landing near to what is modern-day Islamabad, the current capital of Pakistan, in the year 52 AD.
The Pakistan was based on the dreams of the founder of the nation. In this country, he said, there will be no Muslims, no Hindus, no. All will be one, or there will be equality of all. You're free to go to your temples, you're free to go to your mosques. There was this freedom that was stressed. And that was the spirit in which we began this country.
The situation ultimately changed in the 1980s. With the administration of General Mohammad Zia-ul-Haq, who introduced elements of Islamic Sharia law. From that time on, an unceasing trial of strength continues between supporters of a secular state, favored by a well-educated modern elite and some members of the armed forces, and Islamic fundamentalists aspiring to set up an Islamic state. The dispute over Islam's role deepened with the onset of the war in fostering an ever greater radicalization. Terrorist bomb attacks and contract assassinations, also of prominent politicians, have become the order of the day. There is also no shortage of financial crimes, corruption, and drug trafficking. Those who suffer most are the poor and religious minorities, especially Hindus and Christians.
We are at a very critical point in our history with the war in Afghanistan, our neighbor country, which has a big impact on us. Then we have many internal problems, political problems, also increasing religious intolerance. There have been attacks on churches, a lot of violence against Christians. Again, a phenomenon which we never had before to this extent.
Although the cruel bomb attacks capture the headlines, perhaps the greatest suffering faced by Christians is the underlying societal hostility, the daily discriminations, such as denial of services, access to political voice, or limitation to educational opportunities.
When they come to know, and they will tell on their face, because you are Christians, so we can't give you job. When the children of the same college come to know, or university, that he or she is Christian, the first thing they will ask them, why don't you convert and become Muslims? Even the professors who are teaching them.
हमारी क्लास में 100 स्टूडेंट्स हैं.
There are 100 students on my year. I am the only Christian, and sometimes I have problems because of that. Other girls ask me about my faith. When I answer that I am a Christian, they say, "You are really a Christian? You don't look it." When I was at school in 5th form, a few of my girlfriends said in my presence, "Don't drink water from her glass because she's a Christian." Those words moved me profoundly. I told my father when I got back home. My father told me not to worry, for it is written in the Bible that happy are those who are persecuted for Jesus Christ's sake. You are a good person, seeing people talk about you in that way because of Christ.
During Ziaul Haq, there were few laws which were made, which are in a way very prejudiced law, very discriminatory laws. And among these laws, there is one with regard to witnessing. There are 2 women equal to 1 man. So if in Islamic law 2 mature, believing men are taken as witnesses, then it has to be 4 Muslim women. And it has to be 4 Christian or Hindu men, but there have to be 8 Christian women. So if there is an adultery case or rape, then a woman has to prove, if she wants to go to the court against the man who has raped her, then she has to collect all these witnesses. And from where would she collect? And if she failed to prove her case, that means the rape case will be turned into adultery case. So the victim may be also considered as a criminal and be punished.
The Catholic Bishops' National Council for Justice and Peace reports that approximately 30% of young Christians and Hindus suffer sexual harassment at work. According to some estimates, hundreds of young girls are kidnapped every year, forced to marry and convert to Islam. Shafila was 14 years old when her Muslim relatives kidnapped and raped her. She was held captive for several months and forced to convert to Islam. The kidnappers, however, eventually decided to return her for a ransom because of her poor health. The court case did not end up bringing the perpetrators to justice.
They hurt me a lot, beat me. They beat me hard, kept me captive in one house, then another. When I refused to accept Islam, they beat me, saying, "Convert. We are Muslim. We must convert you to Islam." They hit me, took me to the mosque for lessons, drove to the mullah. They forced me to sign, to put my thumb fingerprint on many documents. Then, in my presence, my uncle phoned my parents and said, "Give us 500,000 rupees and we will return your daughter." They continuously tried to get me to marry, and when they failed, they brought me here and left me. When we go to court, we come alone, whilst they come in the company of many men. They are a threat whilst we threaten no one. I want to be a Christian because of my father, my grandfather. So what would I do if I were to become a Muslim? All our family is Christian.
Not only does the law turn a blind eye towards kidnappings, rapes, forced marriages and conversions, but the violence lies also in the heart of the society, in the family, where acts of so-called honor killings take place. According to the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan in 2013, around 900 women were killed in Pakistan by their families in honor killings. If a girl marries a man of her own free will without the family's permission to wed, the belief is that in defense of their honor, she must either be killed or at least vengeance achieved by the pouring of corrosive acid over her. At the end of May 2014, a 25-year-old pregnant woman was stoned to death by her father and brothers outside a court in Lahore for marrying a man of her own choice, what, according to her father, had brought shame on the family.
I remember I was in Sindh. The girl was in 9th grade and her aunt was a friend of mine. So uncle heard from somebody that she was pregnant. No evidence, no test, no nothing. She came back from school and he just called her into the room. They had only one room house. And he put kerosene oil on her and set her on fire. And when I went to the hospital, her flesh was hanging and I just fainted. I just could not see that. And that incident is so much alive with me. Very often, even in the middle of the night, I see that she's there hanging everywhere. The flesh is hanging and even her teeth were burned. I did not know how to console her. She was a wound, whole body was wound. So I wanted to put my hand just to say, I am with you. I just did not know where to put my hand. She died after 5 days, and 5 days of suffering and screams and pain and agony. I just cannot forget that. Nobody asked her whether she was pregnant. Uncle, because he's the male in the family, he had the right to do that.
A woman associated with Pakistan all over the world, who has become a symbol of oppression towards women and the fight for religious freedom, is Asia Bibi, a Christian mother of 5 children sentenced to death in 2009 and awaiting execution. What crime did she commit? Working in a field, she drank water from a well owned by a Muslim. Muslim women accused her of thereby contaminating the well. A discussion followed, during which Bibi is said to have stated, "Jesus gave his life for us. What did the Prophet Muhammad do for you?" Asia Bibi was accused of blasphemy and, because of crowd pressure, hastily sentenced to death. She has been imprisoned since then and is on death row, pending an appeal hearing before the Supreme Court.
And it is injustice, totally injustice. And the lady cannot be even hanged in the Pakistan. But I do not know what was in the mind of, maybe the judge also want to go to the paradise at once. And always there is a written on the walls that kill the non-Muslims, you will go to paradise. This is not good.
If she is released, I don't think she could live in Pakistan. Any girl, or even men, if they are accused of blasphemy, they will be killed sooner or later. And the person who kills that person will go straight to heaven.
From 1927 until 1986, there were no cases of discrimination under the blasphemy law. Then Ziaul Haq quietly, with the notification, made this a law, 295B to begin with, and then 295C. The law is so badly written that anybody can be accused of blasphemy. There was no need of any other proof except 2 witnesses. once that law came in, cases started coming up. So it was really an engineered law and people wanted to make use of that law to discriminate against others.
More Muslims are imprisoned accused of blasphemy against the Prophet Muhammad or insulting the Quran than Christians. For the Christian or Hindu minorities, however, these have become tools used not only to eliminate individuals, but also whole societies. The penalty for desecrating the Quran is a life sentence. The penalty for blasphemy against the Prophet Muhammad, death. Repeatedly, as a consequence of a hasty accusation and the pressure of local imams, infuriated crowds have meted out summary justice, burned and looted whole Christian villages or districts, forcing hundreds of people to flee. Dozens of people face blasphemy charges every year, as in the case of Sandal and her father Gulshar.
We attended church in the evening. I mean, children would come in the evening and we would teach them Bible verses and thereby get to know the Bible together. Then one day these people came along and told us to turn off the loudspeaker. Well, we turned it off. The next day the same people threatened us by saying, "We will kill you." And then they approached us and began throwing stones, so that all the children began to cry. We ran away, closing the church behind us. They broke into the church and wrecked it. They also beat us up and threw stones at us. Then they went to the mosque and declared that I had burned the pristine Quran. They accused us, telling, her father ripped the pages out of the book and handed them to her, and she cut and burnt them.
No Christian would ever do such a thing, nor do we consider it a courageous act.
I was home in the evening. We were about to start eating when they once again started throwing stones. We had no idea what to do. Then my younger sister began to cry. We sat down together and began to pray. Around 9:30, they began a great demonstration, throwing stones, hurling insults and making threats, all at the same time. At that point we became very scared, so I made a call and the police arrived. They locked me up in a separate cell, took away my blanket and the rest. That is how you will spend the night here. And you will not get your blanket or any food until you declare your acceptance of Islam. They locked me up in a warehouse with sacks strewn all over, with no light or ventilation. If the Son of God, Jesus Christ's face was spat upon, and stones were thrown at him, all for our sake, if for our sake he could go through all that, then what we are experiencing is as nothing. The truth is that we have moved much closer to God. On the other hand, it still feels as if we were imprisoned.
If you look at it from a material point of view, then we're bankrupt. But if you look at the spiritual side, then we have won.
There is presently a moratorium on death sentences in Pakistan, though groups demanding the reinstatement of the death penalty grow ever stronger. Up to now, it is the more independent Supreme Court that has annulled death sentences. The accused, however, often have to wait years on death row for the court ruling, whilst their families are forced to flee into hiding, no less so after an acquittal. Chances of any change in this oft-abused law are under the present conditions close to zero, a consequence of the enormous emotions that this law arouses. There is also the diametrically different understanding of the nature of religion, law and freedom in Western and Islamic cultures. which can lead to even the most moderate Muslims making statements that shock.
और हम ये समझते हैं
I believe
कि अगर कोई
that if somebody commits
गुस्ताखी करता है
a profane act,
तो उसको दुनिया में रहने
then
का
he has no right to live in this world,
और हम
and neither me
या कोई
nor
मुसलमान
any other
अच्छे
Muslim,
से अच्छा हो,
irrelevant of whether he might be a good Muslim, religious and God-fearing, a good man, or the greatest sinner.
वो रसूलुल्लाह पर
No Muslim can agree to the Prophet's name being abused in any way.
हजूर की मोहब्बत में
What is more, offering his life out of love for the Prophet and the faith is for him a matter of honor.
अगर यहाँ कानून हम
If we were to
खत्म कर दें
abandon
तो
this
फिर तो
law, then
illegal
profane
ही
acts would be
जाएगी,
committed on every
जो
street
कि
and back
दुनिया
street.
चाहती है।
We do not want what the world desires. Our nation does not want it, our legal system, and all Muslims don't want it. We suggest you introduce such laws in your countries. Our judiciary do not want to make any changes.
हमारे लोग नहीं चाहते।
Unfortunately, the sparks that light anti-Christian riots often derive from events in the West. If the Quran is set afire in the USA, Christians in Pakistan and other Islamic countries suffer. If a film is shown in the West that offends the feelings of Muslims, innocent people on the other side of the globe are at risk from the hands of an angry crowd.
It's commonly, the West is seen as Christian. And this is also part of the problem. The perception is that the Christian West is trying to oppress the Muslims. And the example before us is of Iraq, of Afghanistan. And as a small Christian community, we suffer the effects of what is happening.
In Islam, beginning with the Prophet Jesus, may peace be with him, and ending with the Prophet Muhammad, may the salvation and blessing of God be with him, all the prophets are respected, and profane acts against them are under no circumstances, never ever allowed. Which is why this must remain. As to abuse and to eliminate it, we want Pakistan's Interior Ministry to organize imams and the minority Christians and all the religious groups to form a joint commission. The commission would travel wherever this type of matter arose, and once on the spot, it would observe, investigate, punish the guilty, and release the innocent.
For Christians, true blasphemy against God's name is violence against any person, especially that motivated by religious beliefs. Despite fundamental differences in the understanding of religion and law, joint actions undertaken by Christians and Muslims aimed at dissipating the anger of the crowd and counteracting inflictions of summary justice and the spilling of blood, wherever accusations of blasphemy arise, often save lives.
What is the future? That's the question I think many people are asking. We are at a very critical point, and I'm talking on the level of Pakistan. The extremist forces seem to be gaining ground at the moment. Gaining ground not by winning the minds of the people, but by force, by violence, by using forceful and violent tactics. While on the other hand, you have so many Muslims who are very balanced and do not want this kind of Islam.
True Muslims, who know the Quran well, say, this is not Islam. This is the Taliban. Revenge, war. This is the terrorism. Islam is not like that. Few amongst them admit that what is happening is unjust.
I believe dialogue is possible, and the vast majority of Muslims is very good. The media makes it look very different, but everyday life it is possible, and it is possible to dialogue with even the very group of the ulama, the learned scholars among them.
When you say dialogue with Islam, it's not a question of discussing doctrine or religion. You can try to come to an understanding of each other's religion and what we believe, but I think most of the people are not ready for that. But where we can have a dialogue is what I would call a dialogue of life, where we have so many common values, where in society there are so many things against which or for which we can work together.
When my mother died, both the Honourable Local Bishop and Venerable Priests accompanied me during that sad time. I similarly, when suffering touches them or a tragedy befalls, visit them in person. For example, with the approach of Christmas, I send them flowers and pray for them.
There are groups that have experienced really good relations. In Lahore, we met in a group that supported a Muslim-Christian dialogue. Islamic professors came, small traders came, all sorts of people came. And then we decided that we would not talk about religion, but about our society, about our lives, and we worked well together. If you look at reality, there are plenty of good reasons to be scared. But it is through those very difficulties that I see God's call for us to be ever stronger in faith and to rest our hopes in His providence. God will not abandon us.
E com este documentário sobre a situação dos cristãos no Paquistão, histórias de perseguição, mas também histórias de solidariedade, chegamos ao fim de mais um Igreja no Mundo aqui na sua televisão. Até à próxima semana, se Deus quiser.